So thank you very much for the introduction. As Dr. Vivaldi has said, I'm coming to you from the Czech Republic. Just to make it clear, what are we talking about? The Czech Republic is a small country with about 10.5 million citizens, so it's only slightly more than New York has, and it's located in the Central Europe, democratic nation since 1989, since the Velvet Revolution. And in 1993, as we have already mentioned, the state of Czechoslovakia was separated into two countries. So now we are the Czech Republic and the Slovak Republic. We sometimes refer to this event as the Velvet Divorce. And today the country is doing pretty well. It is ranked among the top 10 most peaceful countries according to the World Peace Index, and also I think it's ranked number 12 in the World Press Freedom Index. So it's quite an achievement for a post-communist country, and I'm telling this because what I'm going to show you in this presentation is not going to make much of a positive image about the country. So I just wanted to show you that it's not so bad. It's not so horrible. We are actually living through the golden era of our nation. As for the anti-Semitism, Czech Republic is considered to be quite safe country for the Jews. The levels of anti-Semitism are generally quite low. While we do not have those surveys like ADL is doing, in which people are being asked a batch of questions about the anti-Jewish stereotypes, we have all those other kinds of surveys, like, for example, the ones on social distance, in which people are being asked, how would you cope having a neighbor from a nationality, this and this and this and this? And the answers about the Jews that are being given by the respondents about the Jews are quite good. Jews are usually being ranked right after the Western nationalities, right after Americans and French and Germans, the Jews, and so this is quite good. But considering the topic of today's talk, which is the attitudes of anti-Semites to Islam and Muslims, I would like to point out the difference between the attitudes to the Jews and to the Arabs. Arabs, on the other hand, are ranked as second worst. The worst are traditionally the Roma, the Gypsies, which are seen very negatively, and right after Roma are the Arabs. So you have a you have a neutral to slightly positive attitudes to the Jews on the one hand, and you have very negative attitudes vis-a-vis the Arabs, and also about the Muslims. If you have questions about the Muslims, you usually get the same statistics. As for the rates of anti-Semitism, as I said, the situation is considered to be quite good. We didn't have physical attacks, for example, physical attacks on humans in the last 5 years. There haven't been any physical attack on motivated by anti-Semitism in the last 5 years. We had several cases of harassment, like somebody shouting on some Jewish individual, "Hey, Jew, give me some money," or something like that. I heard something like that today in the morning in the subway. So it's quite usual. But here in the Czech Republic, you don't have this too much. So this is good. You have some cases of vandalism, like destruction of property or like graffiti or something like that. But again, the rates are quite low. So what is this red chart? This red chart refers to verbal incidents. By verbal incidents, the authors of this report mean website, pamphlet, or some article in the press or something like that. And here they say there is a very strong growth. I wouldn't be so pessimistic because, as the authors of these reports admitted, they have changed the methodology from passive collection of reports to active search, to active monitoring. And because their methodology is becoming more effective, they are getting more results. From my research, it seems that because the main focus of my research is the cyber hate, what you call the cyber hate. That means anti-Semitism on the web. And from my numbers, it seems that the rates, the amounts of anti-Semitic websites in the Czech language are about the same. Since 2010 to 2015, we have about 80, 90 anti-Semitic websites in the Czech language. So this hasn't changed too much. And even if we lack the data for those 2 years, it still seems that the trend isn't changing too rapidly. What is changing is the structure of the anti-Semitic websites in the Czech language. In 2010, most of the anti-Semitic content on the web was being published by the neo-Nazis. But the neo-Nazi movement is undergoing quite a severe crisis. In the last couple of years, there is a strong particularism. It's falling apart. There are conflicts between the leaders, between the individualities. So the neo-Nazi movement is facing sort of an internal crisis, which means their websites, their movements are disappearing. But the vacuum created by this retreat of neo-Nazis from the public space was quickly filled up with a different sort of anti-Semitic movements. And the new wave of anti-Semitism in the Czech Republic today is led not by the neo-Nazis and also not by the radical left, not by the far left. What you have today is movements that combine postmodern esoterics with conspiracy theories, with environmentalism, with anti-Americanism, with anti-globalism, and with very strong pro-Russian attitudes. And this is like a scene which you cannot define by means of left or right or something like that. It's just a bunch of websites that share all these topics together. And from this scene, both the far left and the far right is taking inspiration, is taking the articles, republishes the articles, and it's very difficult to describe this scene by a single name, by a single term. But what defines them is postmodern esotericism, conspiracy theories, anti-American attitudes, anti-globalism, and pro-Russian attitudes. And Now that we have made some introduction about what the anti-Semitism in the Czech Republic is, we can have a look a little bit deeper. We can go further and ask those 80 anti-Semitic websites, what do they actually say about Islam and Muslims? Because when you start talking about anti-Semitism and attitudes to Islam and Muslims, to the Muslim world, what you can meet very often is this notion that for example, the neo-Nazis and the radical Islamists are sharing the same hatred against Israel, the same hatred against the Jews, and because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, then they are supposed to cooperate, right? Nope. It doesn't work like that. Sure, you can find proofs. You can find examples of cooperation. But the problem is, those examples of cooperation you can find, and these images are true. These are true events that truly happened. They can be historically verified. All these pictures are true. The problem is they do not represent the whole image. So what I wanted to do was to get the full image. And I have utilized the fact that my country is very small, that it has a distinct language, it has a distinct linguistic borders, and that the anti-Semitic scene, the Czech anti-Semitic scene, does not use other languages. So the Czech anti-Semites speak only Czech, or sometimes Slovak, but they don't use English, for example. This allows you quite interesting analysis because you have clear linguistic borders and you have clear borders of the cyberspace. You know what is supposed to be in the Czech space and what is not. So what I did was that I used the method of social network analysis to explore the relationships between the Czech anti-Semitic websites. Not only to find what is the structure, and those charts I was showing to you about the changing structure, they are coming from this analysis, but also to find which ones of these anti-Semitic websites are the most authoritative on the scene, which are the most influential. The most influential ones in this chart are the big nodes. You use computer software for this thing, and the software which analyzes the links between the websites can tell you which one of these websites is the most quoted one, which one is the most influential one. So you can get the list of, let's say, top 13 of the most influential websites, and here we have the list. If you would look on the list more closely, you would see that, again, it's not only neo-Nazis. You've got conspiracy theories, like all those 9/11 conspiracy theories and the conspiracy theories about false moon landing and visits of UFO and free energy and all this stuff. It's combined into the same websites. But you have also, for example, Catholic traditionalists and other movements. So when you have this list of 13 most influential anti-Semitic websites, you can then ask Google or any other search engine to look for all mentions, for all remarks on Islam, Muslims, Muslim world, Arab countries, whatever, and you can get you can make a survey, and this survey actually shows you that the responses, the attitudes that are being shown by these anti-Semitic websites to Islam and Muslims are very diverse. It's not the enemy of my enemy is my friend. No. It's much more complex. You can find positive remarks, you can find negative remarks, you can find ambivalent remarks, you can find neutral remarks, and you can find all this diversity on the same place, on the same website. So this is only to show you the first thing. The responses are very diverse. And now what the responses are. If you try to extract the most important stereotypes or the most important words that are being connected to Islam and Muslims by the Czech anti-Semitic websites, what you will get in the end is that the Czech anti-Semitic movements are somewhat stuck in between two main stereotypes of Muslims. The one stereotype is the one everyone knows. That is the stereotype of Muslims as those authentic natives fighting against the Zionist oppression and colonialism and Western capitalism and whatever. This is the stereotype which would allow some cooperation, some sympathies. But you've got another very strong stereotype, and that is the stereotype of Muslims as immigrants. And in the end, you come to a conclusion that if a Muslim wants to be respected by a neo-Nazi, if he wants to get some sympathies from a neo-Nazi or from an anti-Semite, he has to first fight against the state of Israel, or at least against the West, but in the same time, never ever migrate to Europe. Once he crosses the borders of Europe, the same value of authenticity and insistence of keeping one's own Muslim identity becomes a problem, because he insists on keeping his or her Muslim identity and refuses to integrate. And yeah, he can get some sympathies if he comes from Iran or Palestine, but stays there. Don't he dare to cross the European borders. And on the other hand, if he is a black African or Turkish, then he cannot expect any sympathies at all. Black African, that's clear. That's the white-black racism. Turkish, that's the influence of the German scene. So if you explore the discourse even further, even deeper, then you can find negative remarks in the connection to the migration, to Muslims in Europe, to Arabs, Turks, Chechens, that's the Caucasian Muslims, but also about the Sunnah, the Prophet Muhammad, the Holy Quran, the Sunni monarchies, the Sunni Gulf monarchies, namely Saudi Arabia. And also, you can find very negative remarks about the terrorist organizations, Al-Qaeda and ISIS. But on the other hand, you can find some positive remarks. Those come to the domestic Islam in the Muslim countries, to individual personalities, and I will show some of them in a minute, to particular regimes in the Arab world, and also to some of the movements, Hamas, Hezbollah, and you can find very strong positive attitudes to Iran. So this is getting more interesting. You have negative stereotypes. You have negative attitudes to Al-Qaeda and ISIS, but you have positive attitudes to Hezbollah and Hamas. And I will try in this presentation to explain what is the source of this paradox. As I said, for the neo-Nazi or for the anti-Semitic movements in general, Islam is not a problem as long as it stays in the Muslim world. And you can find slogans, you can find articles that are saying exactly exactly that. Islam is not the problem. The politics of multiculturalism is. 0% racism, 100% identity. This is from one of the neo-Nazi websites. And you can also find examples of anti-Semitism being introduced into the anti-Muslim, or if you would prefer, Islamophobic rhetoric. You can find examples of Islam being seen as a Jewish creation. You can find examples of accusations that the Jews created multiculturalism in order to destroy Europe through Islamization, through the Muslim migration. You can also find examples, and I will show some of these, in which some of the populist right-wing European parties, the so-called new right, European new right, like the Geert Wilders, we have him here. This is a very famous picture of Geert Wilders, the leader of the populist Belgian party, wearing the Shabbos decal at the Western Wall. This is a very common picture that accompanies the articles on neo-Nazi websites, because they accuse Geert Wilders and other these politicians that they are servants of Israel, that they are Mossad agents or whatever. So here we can show some examples. Here, for example, we've got an article which says that the Jews want to use Muslim migration to Europe in order to divert the attention from Israel, from Israeli crimes. Or in Germany, in Germany in 2009, long before the migration crisis started. In Germany in 2009, there was an article in the NPD-linked magazine, Das Volk in Bewegung, which claimed that some of these new right parties, they are linked to Israel, and that they are Israeli tools. And this was published in Germany, but it was quickly adopted by the Czech neo-Nazis. And another example of introduction of anti-Semitism into anti-Islamic rhetoric or propaganda can be given on the example of this little fellow. This little fellow is his name is Adam Bartoš, and today he is one of the most important Czech anti-Semites, one of the most influential Czech anti-Semites. He is a leader of the anti-Semitic party named National Democrats. So why do you see him here holding Israeli flag? Yeah, and with a yellow star. That was in 2007, when he was a very radical Israeli supporter. He was a pro-Israeli activist that turned completely 180 degrees. He completely switched sides and became anti-Semite, from philo-Semitism to anti-Semitism. It's a long story. I have another presentation only about his personality. It's a very long story. But this guy, one thing he did before he turned anti-Semitic, he was a founder of the most influential anti-Muslim website named Eurabia. Originally, this website was a strongly pro-American, it was like a pro-American neocon website, very strongly pro-Israeli and for the war against the terror and all this stuff. And For years, this website was the most important resource for anti-Muslim articles. And after 6-7 years of this website's existence, its own founder says, everything I said about Islam is true, but the Jews are responsible for it. And this is very, very dangerous. This is very dangerous. As I told you, the attitudes of the Czechs to the Jews are quite good. The Czechs have no problems with the Jews. But once you start blaming the Jews for what Muslims do, and not Muslims, Islamists and terrorists, if you start blaming the Jews for the crimes, for the atrocities of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, you can easily hijack this whole hatred against the Muslims and divert it to the Jews. Now we will go a little bit more deeper, and I will show you some examples of how the Czech anti-Semitic scene and specifically the neo-Nazi scene responded to the Arab uprisings, or what you would call the Arab Spring. It's very interesting to see that the whole Czech anti-Semitic scene has chosen sides in the conflicts that rage in the Muslim world today. If you look on Syria, for example, all the neo-Nazi movements and also the rest of the anti-Semitic scene in the Czech Republic is very strongly pro-Assad. It strongly supports Bashar al-Assad and the Baath Party. These pictures come from Czech neo-Nazi websites in which the Czech neo-Nazis they were posting those pictures. Hey, look how those people, how they are hailing their president. This is how you should do it, guys. They are very strongly pro-Assad. Why? There is a number of reasons. First, the ideology of Baath has some connection to the ideology of the National Socialism, of the German National Socialism, like Michela Flak and others. But also, the Czech neo-Nazis seem to be following the Iranian and Russian perspective. They seem to be following the axis Moscow, Damascus, Tehran. You know that we have something like a bipolar conflict going on in the Muslim world. That we have on one side, we have the Sunni Gulf monarchies, and on the other, we have the Shiite Islamic Republic of Iran. So they choose sides. And they make it very clearly that they follow the Iranian lead. So if they support Iran, they also support Bashar Assad, because Iran supports Bashar al-Assad, and because Russia supports Bashar al-Assad. And they support the Syrian regime despite the fact that, for example, the Islamist opposition, like ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra and other Islamist movements, are even more anti-Semitic than the Syrian regime itself. When there was this uprising in Bahrain, in which the Shiite opposition rose up against the Sunni ruling family, they supported the Shiite opposition. And sometimes you can find examples that the Sunni Gulf monarchies are delegitimized, just like, for example, Israel is being delegitimized. You can find examples in which they say that those monarchies are only puppet states, they have no right to exist, etc., etc. And the Arab uprisings in the Muslim world were explained by those people by using conspiracy theories. By using conspiracy theories that say that all these uprisings were only organized by Mossad and by CIA, etc., etc. And in the same time, you can find examples in which those anti-Semites, those anti-American movements that are so critical about the American war on terror and that are so critical about using the word terrorism in description of some of the Islamist organizations. In the same time, when the civil war in Syria started, they immediately acquired the same discourse of war on terror. So when they talk about the American operation in Iraq, they use words like American aggression and all this stuff, and they use all those conspiracy theories. But on the other hand, when a Syrian army makes any move against the opposition, it's fight against terrorism. It's Syria fighting against the terrorism and the USA, and it's the continuing fight of the Syrian army against the terrorists. Suddenly, they acquire this discourse of war on terror. And after Muammar Gaddafi was toppled down and the Allied operation in Syria started, the neo-Nazis quickly included the Muammar Gaddafi's Green Book into their libraries. They even established a movement that was trying to mobilize support for Bashar al-Assad in Syria among the Czech population. It was called the European Solidarity Front for Syria. It was inspired by the Italian movement Casa Pound Italia, which founded the same organization or the same trademark, we could say, in Italy. They followed the same lead, the same pattern, and this was an attempt to get attention to the pro-Assad, to the pro-Damascus regime perspective by organizing seminars and rallies in the streets. Here we have some of their materials. Hands off from Syria, and the media lie about Syria. And if you would go to their seminars, to their lectures, like I did in Prague, and then you would look on the speakers, who are the actual speakers there, you would find that on the right hand, you have the foremost Czech neo-Nazi, Patrik Vondrák, the founder of, or not the founder, but one of the leaders of the national resistance movement, a neo-Nazi movement. And right next to him was sitting a communist, a man from a chief editor of the communist newspaper Halo Noviny, Radovan Rybák. Sitting right next to another, neo-Nazi, a communist, and they had a good time. They had a good chat. When it comes to Syria, they have no problems. So this movement organized a couple of rallies in the streets of Prague. They also went to the American embassy with Syrian flags, and they also had some colleagues from Germany participating in the events. And yes, they tried to sing Syrian national anthem in front of the US Embassy in Prague. It was very difficult for them because they realized that it's in Arabic, but yeah, they tried. The 2015 has changed a lot of things. Suddenly, we have realized in Europe that there are some refugees. When they were arriving to southern Italy and to Sicily, we didn't care too much. But suddenly, those refugees appeared in Central Europe. They appeared in Hungary, they appeared in Austria, in Germany. Suddenly, we realized there is something happening. But in the Czech Republic, this refugee wave, or what they call the refugee crisis, isn't actually much visible. The Muslim migration to the Czech Republic is very low. The mainstream of the refugee wave that is coming from Syria and Afghanistan through Turkey and the Balkans avoids the Czech territory. It turns left to Austria and then to Germany, and the Czech Republic, which is somewhere here, is left alone, is left away. So if you look on the statistics, you can find that only 4% of the foreign nationals that are today living in the Czech Republic, only 4% of the foreign citizens living in the Czech Republic are Muslims. And all the foreigners in the Czech Republic represent only 4% of the society. So the Muslims in the Czech Republic, they are 4% of 4%. So we are talking about 20,000 people. That's it. About 20,000 Muslims living in the Czech Republic. And most of them come not from Afghanistan or Syria. Most of them come from the post-Soviet republics. In 2015, it was interesting that we had more asylum seekers from Cuba than from Syria. And why Cuba? That is a long story, but it goes back to Václav Havel and his involvement in support of Cuban opposition. But yes, the migration wave, the migration crisis is completely avoiding our little country. So you would say, then we are okay, right? We can be okay. Nothing's happening. No, the amount of panic that has swollen the Czech society is incredible. Despite the fact that we have nearly no refugees Muslim refugees in the country, we have Czechs, people calling to the police. Hey, there are those weird guys in the forest. They might be refugees. They are building camps, and the police comes there and finds that it's the forest workers gathering wood. Or another occasion, you have somebody calling to police. Hey, there are those weird people going on the roofs, and they have something on their back. It might be Kalashnikov. So the police comes in, heavily armed with automatic rifles, and it sees it's those people who clean chimneys. Or another example, women who for some reason have to wear a scarf or any form of scarf are being attacked on streets. This woman, for example, she is suffering from cancer. She's going through chemotherapy. She has lost her hair, so she has to wear a scarf, and she's being attacked because she's considered to be Muslim. You have this weird panic in the society. And yes, the people are afraid, but the problem is this can be very easily misused. And it's not only the radicals, it's not only the radical fringe of the society. You can sometimes hear the mainstream politicians talking about conspiracies, like when the World Health Organization came with that report that red meat causes cancer, Přemysl Sobotka, who was chairman of the Czech Senate, he came up with this strange theory on his Facebook that there seems to be a weird coincidence between the WHO report and the Muslim migration. They want to prepare the ground for the Muslims or what? In this atmosphere, the society is very vulnerable to any kind of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories as well. This atmosphere of panic opens the door for the anti-Semites, and they realize it, they know it. So again, what is the way of how is the anti-Semitism being introduced into the public discourse in reaction to the migration crisis? First, again, the migration wave is being portrayed as something organized by the Jews. For example, you can find a theory that says that the Jews want to punish Europe somehow for the anti-Jewish, for the history of anti-Jewish incitement, or that the Jews have created the Sunni terrorist organizations like ISIS or Al Qaeda. But you can also find examples of anti-Semitism that is appearing in quarrels between various far-right movements over who has the right to use the anti-immigration rhetoric. I will show examples in a minute. And the last example is when these movements call for anti-Muslim gathering, they call for anti-Muslim rally. All those hundreds and thousands of people come to the streets, and they are being served anti-Semitic literature. Not literature about Islam, but anti-Semitic literature. So here are some examples. To whom should we thank for Islamization? Asks Adam Bartosz, this formerly pro-Israeli activist who turned anti-Semitic. And he accuses Jews of organizing the migration wave in order to invoke support for Israel. And you can find another example, I've mentioned this one, that the Jews are organizing Islamization of Europe in order to punish the Christianity for the anti-Jewish violence. And then you have those anti-immigration or those websites with anti-immigration content, websites that are labeled Europe against immigration, and on that website you can find this anti-Semitic cartoon labeled New World Order. This cartoon does not originate in the Czech Republic. It actually originates in the United States. And those people, this is you, every one of you. This is how the neo-Nazis see you. This is us in their imagination. And the quarrels between the various movements. Just like I've shown at the beginning of this presentation, this Geert Wilders wearing a yarmulke at the Western Wall in Jerusalem, and all those conspiracy theories that he is being, that he tries to invoke support by misusing the topic of Islam. We have now something like that in the Czech Republic as well. This guy is called Martin Konvička. He is a university professor, and he recently established a movement called Bloc Against Islam. And here you have the logo of this movement. And this movement says that it's only against Islam, that it's not against the Jews. And Martin Konvička himself even said that he supports Israel. But as his critics correctly argue, he does not support Israel because he is so much interested in the Jewish right for self-determination. He supports Israel only because Israel kills Muslims in his imagination. This is why I sometimes say to the Jewish or the Zionist organizations, guys, be very careful about your friends. Be very careful about choosing your friends, because not everyone who says that he supports Israel really means it. But this movement of Martin Konvička has got quite a strong support, quite a strong recognition from the public, and it is now capable of organizing rallies of thousands of people. And the neo-Nazis, they see it. And the anti-Semites, they see it. And they see this movement of that guy, Martin Konvička, as a threat. In their minds, in their perspective, he is stealing the anti-immigration rhetoric from them. And what they do, they attack him. And how do they attack him? They call him Zionist agent or Jewish agent or Mossad agent or whatever. So Islamization is just a symptom. Check, be careful about false prophets. This is what neo-Nazi website Náš Směr said. And here we have another example. This article was written by a neo-Nazi, Eric Lamprecht, who is one of the leaders of the neo-Nazi Workers' Party, Dělnická strana sociální spravedlnosti. And in this article, this guy is trying to start a polemic against the leader of Bloc Against Islam. And he is trying to explain why only the neo-Nazi way of talking about Islam and why only the neo-Nazi way of fighting against Islam is the proper way. Among others, he, for example, says that his Workers' Party is not interested in a simple anti-Muslim rhetoric, that it has no problems with Muslims in the Muslim world. He says that the only problem is when a Muslim crosses the borders of Europe. And he accuses this Martin Konvička that by inciting hatred against Islam in general, that he is following some Israeli or Zionist lead. It's quite an interesting polemic because it shows how the neo-Nazis try to balance this position, how they are trying to find a delicate balance between the racial ideology, between the enemy of my enemy is my friend concept, and in the same time between the necessity to utilize the anti-immigration rhetoric. And this polemic over who has the right to use the anti-immigration or anti-Muslim rhetoric is even more interesting because Islam was not the primary topic in the Workers' Party propaganda until very recently. They themselves didn't care about Islam. Now, suddenly they have discovered the topic of Islam and the topic of immigration. But this is a chart that follows the amounts of remarks on Islam, Muslims, and migration in the articles published by the website of this neo-Nazi Workers' Party, and it goes by months from 2003 until 2015. And one article per month, 2 articles per month, Nothing interesting. Only when it comes to 2015, they suddenly discover that there is some Islam, some Muslims, and that they should talk about it. Until that time, this Workers' Party was focusing mainly and primarily on the Gypsies, on the Roma, on the rhetoric against the Roma. And here we are again with this little fellow, with Adam Bartoš, the leader of the National Democracy. This is one of the anti-immigration rallies in Prague, and here's another interesting thing about all these rallies against Islamization and against Islam, Muslims, etc. These rallies are trying to hijack the topic of immigration and Islam for anti-American and anti-European purposes. It's not rare to see, for example, flag like this. Do you know what does this flag mean? It's called St. George's ribbon, and in 2014 and 2015, this was a very important symbol in the war in Ukraine. Those soldiers who occupied Crimea, they had this St. George's ribbon on their uniforms. And the separatists in Ukraine, they have the St. George's ribbons on their uniforms when they are fighting. So by taking this flag, you are expressing very strong pro-Russian attitudes, and you're expressing your support for what Vladimir Putin is doing in Ukraine. And you've got those pro-Russian activists very strongly involved in those events. Events that are connected or that include burning of European flags. Again, this is not much connected to the topic of Islam, but it's an interesting strategy by them to utilize the anti-immigration, anti-Muslim rhetoric to say that Brussels is trying to teach us something, but we don't wanna go with Brussels. We will go with Russia because Russia shows the correct path. So you can see burning of European flags on these events, and you can see what I have mentioned. Selling of anti-Semitic literature. All these books you can see here are anti-Semitic. And none of them is connected to Islam. None of them talks about Islam. This is an anti-Muslim demonstration, anti-Muslim event. You would expect something like why the Sharia is the worst thing in the world or something like that. No. This is all anti-Semitic literature, including Germar Rudolph, Lectures on the Holocaust, Traian Romanescu, Masters and Slaves of the 20th Century, or a domestic piece by Adam Bartoš himself, Circumcised Republic, which says that the Czechoslovakia was created, or that the creation of Czechoslovakia was a Jewish invention, was a Jewish plot to destroy the European unity. Anti-Semitic books on anti-Muslim protest. And you can also see it in the slogans, in the banners, like Stop Islam. Okay, but EU, NATO, TTIP, that's the controversial agreements. Okay, that would be Stop USA. Stop Islam and Stop USA. Here you are used to the completely different kind, like Stop Islam, long live the America. But they are trying to use exactly the same, Stop Islam, long live Russia. And yeah, again, you have the colors of the St. George's ribbon, USA global terrorists. in the color scheme of the Donetsk flag. Conclusions. We have those conflicting stereotypes of Islam and Muslims. It's not enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's enemy of my enemy is my what? So you have this anti-Zionist, anti-Israel fighter, but you have this Muslim immigrants. You have the fact that Muslims can get some certain sympathies from the anti-Semite, but only as long as they stay in the Muslim world. In the Arab Spring, you have very strong support for the secular regimes against their Islamic opposition, which is an interesting fact because, as I said, sometimes this Islamic opposition, for example, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, was far more anti-Israeli than Mubarak was. Yet they supported Mubarak. And this is, things like that are quite important because they show us that anti-Semitism is not the primary factor in choosing friends in the Middle East. It has maybe second or third. It's maybe the second or third factor. But the first factor here is the line of Iran and Russia. Is the line that they follow the lead of Iran and Russia against America, and the Sunni Gulf monarchies are delegitimized exactly because they cooperate with America. That is all from me. Thank you very much for your attention.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to Jem, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.